Well, hello. Thanks for joining me today. Today is April 4th, otherwise known as 420 to some. And well, we have some wild experiences happening today. There was a time when it was hard to find interesting tax topics to talk about. But boy, 2023 is just very generous with some of the things going on. And I want to share the story about what's going on with Joe Biden and Joe Biden, Joe Biden and his family. There apparently is a whistleblower at the IRS who is going to testify to how the IRS has been bent to the will of Joe Biden and his family so that he and his family aren't facing criminal charges that others may face. And this is Jason Smith, the new chair of the House Ways and Means Committee. House Ways and Means is where all the tax fun starts. So if you're interested in taxes, you are interested in the Ways and Means Committee. He has a quote here where he says, "From the first days of this new Congress, I made it clear that we will value the importance and role of whistleblowers in ensuring the integrity of our governing institutions, which is why we established an online portal providing IRS employees a direct avenue to provide information regarding any wrongdoing that they may have witnessed or believed to be occurring. We also take seriously the importance of protecting whistleblowers in accordance with the law. As with all matters with the committee, we will now go where the facts go and conduct a review on this important matter." So what does this mean? What's going to happen? Here's, by the way, the portal. If you are an IRS employee and you want to make a whistleblower, this is where you would go. This is where I'm thinking here. People want to know what is going to happen. Will the Bidens actually come? Will the tax code actually be the downfall of the Bidens? Will that be the thing that brings them down? Maybe here. And I actually think there's a really, really good charge. But here's the thing I want to point out that you actually there doesn't need to be any criminal charges brought against the Bidens to completely ruin them. That based on what I've seen in the bank accounts, the lack of reporting, they got two big problems civilly. The Bidens have two big problems civilly. One is an FBAR penalty. And the IRS can assert FBAR penalties if you don't report the existence of a foreign bank account when you own bank accounts over $10,000 in the aggregate. The IRS can assess you up to a 50% penalty on that account's high balance during the year. Now, typically, the IRS only assess one of those willful penalties. A 150% penalty could be quite ruinous, but there's actually nothing to stop the IRS from assessing multiple penalties on the same accounts for each year. So if we have a 50% penalty, the IRS can assess six years. You're talking about 300% of penalty, which is probably enough to ruin anyone. So that's really something that the Bidens would need to look out for. Now, here's the thing. If they're thinking that there weren't a signatory on any of these foreign bank accounts that they were owners of, may have been owners, but they were merely beneficiaries of that bank account, guess what? Still got that FBAR filing obligation. So that's really something they're going to have to look out for. Kind of curious if that will happen. The other thing is a Form 3520. Now, a lot of money has been going back and forth between various people, and not sure exactly what these are, how the IRS wants to characterize it. Maybe it's taxable income, but maybe the Bidens will claim it's a gift. Well, there's probably even a bigger problem with that because there's Form 3520. Look, you could get a gift from anyone, or a foreign gift, and it's not taxable to you as a U.S. person. It's kind of a bizarre thing. You can get a gift from overseas for hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars, and not have to pay 1 cent of tax on it. But the thing you do need to do is that value of a gift is over $100,000. There's a significant penalty for not informing the IRS that you received this gift for Form 3520. And they can assess up to a 35% penalty on the value of the gift for each one. And now here's the thing, for each one you needed to do. A difference that we have for 3520 and in the FBAR is there's actually no statute of limitations on here. So you can see here, that they don't even need to be charged criminally to have their wealth taken away. And if their wealth is taken away, I'm not sure how powerful they are. And, this is what I would say is, do you think the Bidens will be taken down? Do we think the Bidens will be taken down because of this? Let's think about this. Let's really think about how powerful Joe Biden is. Who is really powerful? So Joe Biden won 2% of the vote in the New Hampshire primary in the year 2020. 2% of the vote. He was a distance runner, and his campaign seemed to be falling apart, and he was done. Then out of a sudden, out of the blue, he became the front runner. Joe Biden, he did not. He lost far more. He lost far more counties than Barack Obama ever did. But he had a miracle victory that a few Democratic controlled counties. He had turnout over 100%, and those few Democrat counties provided his entire margin of victory. In these Democratic counties, Black voters came out in record numbers, even more for him than Barack Obama, which is curious information. So how powerful is Joe Biden? Well, he is not that powerful, I would say. He's really not the person in control because Joe Biden has to pay taxes. Joe Biden is not exempt from U.S. taxation. He is still just a regular U.S. person who is under the weight of the IRS. And again, I actually think this might be his undoing, because here's the other thing too. The IRS wants always to present itself as powerful, but also on the side of good. If you, most people think of the Al Capone criminal conviction, and there's an example of the inevitability of the IRS. And hey, look, if you're a bad guy, the IRS is going to come back at you. Well, I did a video on that years ago, and it's actually nothing like what you think. Al Capone likely never evaded taxes, and he actually attempted to get in compliance. It was a total setup. They wanted to get Al Capone, again, for those reasons, to give that mythology that, hey, even Al Capone can't escape the IRS. He didn't attempt to. That the IRS will eventually get the bad guys. And so, hey, look, maybe we all hate getting taxed, but you know what? At least we can count on the IRS to put the bad guys away. And while there are some support for Joe Biden, this just might be a little bit too much. And now let's compare. Let's compare Joe Biden with someone who is truly powerful. And if you're those joining us, I welcome you, and I welcome your comments on this. So I'm going to go to something that will, I thought of this last night and it blew my mind. How powerful is Joe Biden? Well, I'm going to go to another unrelated tax topic, maybe not. This is the Glenshaw glass test for income. Okay, this is the test we're taught in law school of like, hey, well, what is income? How do we define it? If something's taxed, we need to define what it is. So this is the rule, and it's been tweaked here and there, but this is the general rule. Where there's instances of an undeniable accession of wealth, clearly realized, over which the taxpayers have complete dominion. That's where the courts have come out and said, okay, that's a taxable event. Often in tax planning, you're trying to figure out a way to get around this, or just go for a straight up exemption. For instance, life insurance proceeds. Those are 100% exempt from taxation by statute. Okay, so life insurance companies seem to be powerful to me, because if you have a policy, you can live out, you could borrow off your death benefit, never have a taxable event. Some of the very wealthy people have these sophisticated structures. They're called private placement life insurance policies, and they work great. So if you're powerful, you end up with an exemption to this. And this is something that I came up with last night. So now we're going to find out who's actually really the most powerful. Here we are with our friends, the Federal Reserve Act. I got this off their website, federalreserve.gov, about the Fed. And I went to section 7, division of earnings. Found the most amazing thing in there. Would you believe this? Now, we all know that the Federal Reserve can just make money, right? It just makes money, pulls it out of thin air. Let's go back to that slide we talked about, Glenshaw glass. Let's go back to right here. Let's go back to this slide. Okay, so tell me, when the Federal Reserve, all of those private bankers get together and they decide, yes, let's make some more money. What they mean is let's make money, like make it, not earn it, but let's make it. Let's create it out of thin air. So would the Federal Reserve creating the trillions and billions of dollars out of thin air that they've done, would that satisfy the Glenshaw glass test for income? Well, undeniable accession of wealth. Yes, you just created it, and it is legal tender that everybody must accept. Is it clearly realized? Yes, you have it in your own accounts, and you have it once you create it. You've created it. And you have complete dominion. Yes. And then you decide to lend that to the U.S. government and then take interest on it. So there could be no way that we could say that whatever the Federal Reserve is doing, it would be a taxable event, 100% a taxable event. But the act itself goes and says, Federal Reserve banks, including the capital stock and surplus therein, and the income derived therefrom, shall be exempt from federal, state, and local taxation. And then they throw a bone here, except taxes upon real estate. Note how they don't say except taxes upon real estate and real property, because that cash could be considered real property, and jurisdictions could say, well, we'll put a tax on your property. So isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? And so, we've been talking about Senator Warren. Senator Warren is someone who claims to be out there for the little guy there and saying, hey, you know what? These rich fat cats, they're getting away with not paying anything in taxes. They're getting away. Well, yeah, you're right. And her proposal is to pass a wealth tax on every U.S. person. She claims it's going to be $50 million or more, but we know how that works and how things kind of go down a little bit and affect people more or less around the world, or affect everybody. But why are we going to people with $50 million? Maybe we should go to people who actually have all the money in the world, who create all the money in the world, the most powerful. But here we lie, guys. I think we know the answer to that one. I think we know the answer to why we're going to do that, because the Federal Reserve is actually the most powerful entity in the United States. So with that, I think, you know what? I think we have a new mission in life here, right? We have a new mission, a new quote, that what we should do, if we're interested in tax fairness and making sure the richest pay their fair share, why don't we, instead of creating a whole new wealth tax and amending the this and that, try to fund these things, very simple. All we need to do is repeal this little section, 12 USC 53 section 7C. All this little thing. This is all we need to do. So I'm curious if anyone at all is interested in getting this done. I'd love to hear your comments and what we could do. This is probably going to be something I talk about a bit more in the future, how the Federal Reserve, as many people know, the Federal Reserve acts in conjunction with the IRS in order to rule over our world, that the Federal Reserve creates the money and the IRS collects it, destroys it, so that hyperinflation doesn't occur. That's more the better way to look at it. Again, both were passed in weeks of each other in 1913, so they act in conjunction. Well, that's it. I hope I give you some promise about what's going to happen. I do expect the IRS. This will be the downfall for Joe Biden, because he's not the true power player. I think we all know who is. This is Anthony Parent of IRS Medic. I thank you for watching.